You won't believe the secret life of little Maya Thompson, hidden behind the walls of her own home. At just 8 years old, she was a beacon of light in her small world, with a smile that could brighten even the gloomiest days. Maya loved to dance in her living room, twirling to the rhythm of her favorite songs, and spinning tales of adventure with her dolls, each one imbued with her imagination. But as vibrant as her spirit was, there was a darker shadow lurking just beyond the periphery of her cheerful facade. Maya was left in the care of Miss Collins, the babysitter who seemed to wear a mask of kindness. To the outside world, she presented as sweet and nurturing, always with a warm smile and a plate of cookies for the children. But behind the closed doors of their home, she transformed into someone else entirely. The gentle tone she used when speaking to Maya could swiftly morph into a sharp rebuke, her eyes narrowing with disdain at the slightest mistake. A forgotten chore or a small accident could trigger a torrent of verbal abuse, leaving Maya feeling as small and insignificant as a lost penny on the floor. It wasn't just the words that cut deep, it was the way Miss Collins's hands would tremble with rage as they made contact. Sometimes, when she felt particularly cruel, she'd slap Maya's hand for minor infractions, like spilling juice on the carpet or failing to keep her toys tidy. Each encounter left a bruise not only on Maya's skin but also on her heart, where the seeds of fear and doubt took root. As she curled up in her bed each night, Maya's thoughts raced. Would tomorrow be another day filled with Miss Collins's cruelty? Would she be brave enough to stand up for herself? The once joyful girl now lay awake, imagining the ways she could escape the torment, drawing plans in her mind of how to avoid confrontation or win over her babysitter's heart. But deep down, she knew that escaping was easier said than done. In the hallway outside her room, her parents were oblivious to the storm brewing within their child. Caught up in their busy lives, they rushed to and from work, unaware of the emotional and physical battles Maya faced every day. They trusted Miss Collins, believing she would provide a safe environment for their daughter while they were away. They had no idea that their innocent decision had turned into a nightmare for Maya. "Maya, dinner's ready," her mother called from the kitchen, breaking her from her thoughts. With a heavy heart, she reluctantly slipped from under her blanket, smoothing her crumpled pajamas as she steeled herself for another evening with the babysitter. In the kitchen, her mother hummed a tune, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing just a few feet away. As she sat at the dinner table, Maya forced a smile, but inside, she felt like she was drowning. Every laugh from her parents felt like a reminder of her own sadness. What if she told them? What if they believed her? The questions twisted in her mind like a coiling serpent, squeezing her heart tighter with every passing moment. Just then, Miss Collins appeared, her demeanor instantly shifting the atmosphere in the room. She swept in with her usual confident stride, a mock smile plastered on her face. "What a lovely dinner you have here," she exclaimed, her voice dripping with false cheer. Maya's stomach churned at the sight of her, as dread filled her veins like ice. Would tonight be one of those nights? That evening, Maya would sit and listen, her heart racing with each bite of food. The walls of her home felt like a prison, and as she finished her dinner, she could almost hear the ticking clock of her limited time before being left alone with the person who made her life unbearable. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, Maya's resolve began to harden. She wanted to believe that things could change, that someone might see through the lies and the mask that Miss Collins wore. But how could she ever make them understand the reality of her suffering? With that thought, she clutched her doll tightly, a flicker of hope igniting deep within her. Maybe one day, she would find the courage to speak up. The next day dawned with a heavy gray sky, mirroring the weight in Maya's heart. She woke up to the sound of her mother bustling around the house, preparing for another long day at work. The scent of pancakes wafted through the air, but it was a comfort that eluded Maya. As she mechanically chewed her breakfast, her mind was already racing ahead to what awaited her. "Don't forget your lunch, sweetie," her mother chirped, placing a small brown bag next to Maya's plate. "And remember to be good for Miss Collins today." "Yeah, I will," Maya replied, forcing a smile that felt brittle and false. In her mind, she was already rehearsing the conversations she would have, the excuses she would make to avoid confrontation. After her parents left, the house grew silent, the kind of silence that amplified Maya's anxiety. It was just her and the looming presence of Miss Collins, who would arrive any minute. She busied herself with a coloring book, hoping to escape into a world of bright colors and cheerful drawings, but the joy of creation felt distant. When the doorbell rang, a familiar sense of dread washed over her. She opened the door to find Miss Collins standing there, her expression devoid of warmth. "Time to start the day, Maya. Let's see what trouble we can get into today," she said, her voice carrying an edge that sent a shiver down Maya's spine. Throughout the morning, Miss Collins monitored Maya's every move. She hovered like a storm cloud, ready to unleash her wrath over the slightest misstep. Maya felt the tension rise like a tide, and she tried to stay on her best behavior, but it was exhausting. She flinched every time Miss Collins's gaze fell on her, as if expecting a lash of criticism or worse. By midday, the strain became unbearable. After dropping a cup while trying to help Miss Collins prepare lunch, Maya's heart sank. The cup shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces, and the room went silent. Miss Collins's face twisted into a mask of fury, her eyes narrowing dangerously. "Look what you've done, you little klutz. Can't you do anything right?" she spat, her voice rising. Maya shrank back, tears stinging her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Sorry doesn't fix everything, Maya. You need to learn to be more careful." With that, Miss Collins took a step closer, and Maya felt her breath quicken. The familiar dread pooled in her stomach, twisting and knotting until she thought she might be sick. "Please, I'll clean it up," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. But instead of responding, Miss Collins's hand shot out, catching Maya on the arm, and she yanked her forward, forcing her to crouch down to pick up the shards of glass. The pain surged through Maya's arm, and her heart raced. She fought back the tears, not wanting to show any weakness. As she crouched on the floor, Maya felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. It was an all too familiar feeling, the rush of humiliation washing over her like a tidal wave. She hated this, she hated feeling so powerless. In that moment, a spark ignited within her, a fierce determination that she wouldn't let this woman break her spirit. "Why do you always have to be so mean?" Maya finally mustered, her voice shaking but defiant. "I'm just a kid. You're supposed to take care of me, not hurt me." Miss Collins's expression shifted, surprise flickering across her face. For a brief moment, she seemed taken aback, her grip loosening on Maya's arm. "You think you can talk back to me?" she sneered, but her tone was less assured now. Maya's heart raced, emboldened by the small act of bravery. "You're not my mom, and I don't have to listen to you." The words spilled out before she could stop them, an adrenaline rush fueled by her pain and fear. The babysitter's eyes darkened, and she leaned in closer, her voice a low hiss. "You'll regret saying that, little girl." But instead of recoiling, Maya found a strength she didn't know she had. "Maybe it's you who needs to learn a lesson." The tension hung heavy in the air, a standoff between childhood innocence and the cold reality of cruelty. Just then, the sound of the front door creaked open, and Maya's heart leapt. It was her parents returning home early, a stroke of luck that might save her from the wrath of Miss Collins. "Maya. We're home," her mother called cheerfully. The warmth of her mother's voice cut through the thick tension like a ray of sunshine breaking through clouds. Miss Collins stepped back, her demeanor shifting to a mask of feigned sweetness. "Oh, how nice to see you. Maya and I were just having a little chat." Maya's heart sank at the falsehood in Miss Collins's words, but she held her tongue, knowing the moment wasn't hers to claim. As her parents entered the room, she could feel the tide turning. The babysitter's hold on her would soon be challenged. "Maya, sweetheart, are you okay?" her mother asked, concern knitting her brow as she looked at Maya's flushed face. "Yeah, I'm fine," Maya replied, but her voice trembled. Little did her parents know that this wasn't the end of her struggle. It was merely the beginning. In the shadows of that seemingly normal day, a storm was brewing, a storm that would soon reveal the truth about Miss Collins and the pain she had inflicted on Maya. The atmosphere shifted when Maya's parents entered the living room, their presence like a dam holding back a flood of emotion. Miss Collins quickly transformed into the picture of charm, her sharp edges concealed beneath a veneer of sweetness. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson," she exclaimed, her voice dripping with false cheer. "I was just telling Maya how well she's been behaving today." Maya wanted to scream, to reveal the truth, but the words lodged in her throat. Instead, she forced a smile and nodded, her heart racing. The facade was suffocating, and it felt like the walls were closing in on her. "Maya, why don't you show your dad the picture you drew?" her mother suggested, trying to maintain the cheerful atmosphere. "Yeah, okay," Maya mumbled, retreating to the kitchen where she had hastily taped her drawing on the refrigerator. It was a bright depiction of a sunny day in the park, a stark contrast to her current reality. As she stood in front of her drawing, Maya's mind raced. She could hear her mother's light laughter mingling with Miss Collins's saccharine remarks. She wished she could shake off the overwhelming fear that lingered like a shadow. "Wow, this is beautiful," her father praised, stepping up behind her. "You've got a real talent, kiddo." Maya smiled weakly, touched by his encouragement. "Thanks, Dad." But her moment of pride was short-lived. In the background, Miss Collins's voice cut through the air. "I'm just trying to teach her some discipline. You know how these kids can be." Maya's stomach churned at the implication, a wave of nausea hitting her. She forced herself to focus on her drawing, the colors a welcome distraction. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Maya attempted to enjoy time with her parents, but the underlying tension never faded. She caught snippets of Miss Collins's condescending comments disguised as advice. "You have to be firm with them," she would say, her eyes darting toward Maya with a knowing look. Finally, the moment arrived that would change everything. As the evening wore on, Maya's parents settled into the couch for a rare moment of relaxation. Maya felt a surge of anxiety, knowing that soon it would be time for Miss Collins to leave. As the babysitter prepared to head home, Maya could feel her heart thumping in her chest. The words she had held back all day were on the tip of her tongue. This was her chance. Miss Collins," she began, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" Miss Collins paused, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. "What is it, Maya?" "I'm busy." Maya's parents exchanged glances, sensing the tension. "Is everything okay, sweetheart?" her mother asked, concern etched on her face. I just wanted to say," Maya hesitated, the words slipping away. Miss Collins stepped closer, her expression hardening. "Make it quick. I don't have all day." Suddenly, Maya found her voice. "You're always so mean to me. You hurt me, and I don't want you to babysit me anymore." The words burst out like a dam breaking, a flood of emotions crashing through her. The room fell silent, and Maya's heart raced. Miss Collins's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint flickering within. "You little brat," she hissed. "How dare you speak to me like that?" Maya's parents stood frozen, shock rippling through them. "What are you talking about, Maya?" her father finally said, his voice tense. "She bullies me. She hits me." Maya exclaimed, her voice cracking with desperation. "I'm scared of her." Miss Collins's face twisted in anger, her mask slipping. "You're just making things up to get attention. What a pathetic little liar." "No. I swear." Maya cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Please, you have to believe me." The room erupted in chaos. Her mother rushed forward, trying to calm the situation. "Let's all take a breath. Maya, we need to talk about this. Miss Collins, how could you treat her this way? Don't listen to her." Miss Collins shouted, her voice rising in pitch. She's just trying to ruin me. As the confrontation escalated, Maya felt a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time, she was not the silent victim. She had a voice, and she was ready to use it. "Mom! Dad," she pleaded, her eyes wide with fear and determination. "You have to believe me. I can show you the bruises. I can show you the marks she left on me." Her parents exchanged glances, uncertainty etched on their faces. "Bruises?" her father asked, his tone now serious. "Maya, are you hurt? Please, just listen to me," Maya urged, her heart pounding. Miss Collins's composure faltered, and for a moment, Maya saw fear flicker across her face. "This is all lies. She's just trying to get rid of me because I'm doing my job." But the weight of Maya's words had already begun to settle in. Her mother's expression shifted from confusion to realization, and her father stepped closer, anger flashing in his eyes. "Maya, show us," her father said firmly. "Show us the truth." The storm within Maya finally broke free, a rush of relief flooding through her. She turned and led her parents down the hall, determination propelling her forward. As she reached her bedroom, she hesitated for just a moment, heart pounding in anticipation. This was it, the moment when everything could change. "Here," she said, pulling up the sleeve of her shirt to reveal the faint marks on her skin. "Look what she's done to me." Her mother gasped, covering her mouth in shock, while her father's expression hardened with rage. "Miss Collins," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "you're fired. Get out of our house." Maya could hardly breathe as she watched Miss Collins's expression twist from anger to fear, her bravado crumbling under the weight of the truth. "Wait. You can't do this," Miss Collins shouted, but her voice was weaker now, lacking the authority it once held. "Oh yes, we can," her mother replied, her voice steady. "Maya deserves better, and we won't tolerate this behavior any longer." In that moment, as Miss Collins gathered her things and stormed out, Maya felt a wave of empowerment wash over her. For the first time, she had stood up for herself, and she realized that sometimes, the hardest battles were the ones fought within. As the door closed behind Miss Collins, Maya turned to her parents, her heart racing. "Thank you for believing me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Her mother pulled her into a tight embrace. "We'll always believe you, Maya. You're safe now." And in that moment, surrounded by love and understanding, Maya finally felt the shadows begin to lift. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Maya. The relief of having Miss Collins out of her life was overshadowed by a lingering sense of unease. Even in her own home, she felt like a stranger in a world that had suddenly shifted around her. Maya's parents, fueled by their protective instincts, took immediate action. They began researching babysitters, carefully vetting potential candidates and ensuring they had excellent references. The phone calls were long and often tedious, but Maya could see the determination in her parents' eyes, their commitment to creating a safe environment for her. "Maya, it's important that you know we're here for you," her mother said one evening as they sat together at the kitchen table. "You can always come to us if something doesn't feel right. We won't let anyone hurt you again." Maya nodded, a mixture of gratitude and guilt swirling within her. Part of her felt responsible for what had happened. Had she spoken up sooner, maybe Miss Collins wouldn't have had the chance to hurt her. She shook her head, trying to dispel those thoughts. No, this was not her fault. As the days turned into a week, Maya began to notice changes in her daily routine. Her parents were more attentive, checking in with her throughout the day. They even took time off work to spend more hours with her, creating a protective bubble that made her feel cherished but also suffocated. "I feel like I'm being smothered," she admitted to her best friend, Zara, during a phone call. "I know they're trying to help, but I just want things to go back to normal." "I get it, Maya. It's like they're trying to wrap you in cotton wool," Zara replied, her voice understanding and warm. But it's good they're being careful. You've been through a lot. The conversation made Maya reflect on her experiences. It was true, she had been through a lot. The memories of Miss Collins's cruelty still haunted her, a shadow that crept into her thoughts when she least expected it. That Saturday, her parents finally arranged for a new babysitter to come over. Maya felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Would this one be kind? Would she feel safe? When Ella arrived, Maya was surprised by her demeanor. She was young, probably in her 20s, with an easy smile and bright eyes that sparkled with warmth. "Hi, Maya. I'm Ella," she introduced herself, kneeling down to meet Maya's gaze. "I've heard so much about you. Your parents told me you're an amazing artist." Maya felt a flutter of hope. "Thank you. I like to draw," she replied, her shyness melting away in the face of Ella's genuine enthusiasm. As the afternoon unfolded, Ella encouraged Maya to show her some of her artwork. They spent time together in her room, chatting and laughing as they colored and painted. For the first time since Miss Collins, Maya felt a sense of ease creeping back into her heart. However, it was during this newfound comfort that a nagging worry began to take hold. Would Ella leave, too? Would she suddenly turn into someone unrecognizable, someone who would hurt her? The questions gnawed at her, but she fought to push them aside. "Can I see your drawings?" Ella asked, pulling Maya from her thoughts. Maya hesitated, but the warmth in Ella's voice encouraged her. She led Ella to her art station, a small corner of her room adorned with sketches and colorful crayon drawings. "This is my favorite one," Maya said, pointing to a vibrant landscape. Ella's eyes lit up. "Wow! This is incredible. You have such talent, Maya. You should enter an art contest." Maya's heart soared at the compliment. "Really? You think so?" "I absolutely do. You have a gift, and I'd love to help you with it," Ella said enthusiastically. As they talked about art, Maya felt a sense of normalcy returning. It was refreshing to be around someone who seemed genuinely interested in her, and for a brief moment, the memories of her past experiences faded into the background. But just as they were settling into a comfortable rhythm, the front door opened with a creak, and her parents stepped inside. Their faces instantly transformed from relaxed to tense as they surveyed the room. "Maya, everything okay?" her father asked, scanning the scene with protective eyes. "Yeah. Ella is really nice," Maya replied, her voice bright with excitement. "We were just talking about art." Her mother approached, visibly relieved. "I'm glad to hear that. We just want to make sure you feel safe." Maya nodded, but as she looked at her parents, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were still haunted by what had happened. It was evident in the way they hovered and watched her every move. That evening, while Maya lay in bed, she replayed the day's events in her mind. As she drifted into a restless sleep, she wondered if she could ever fully escape the grip of fear that Miss Collins had left behind. The next day, however, would challenge everything Maya had come to believe about safety and trust. As Ella returned for another day of babysitting, Maya felt a renewed sense of hope. Perhaps this was the start of something good, a friendship that could heal the wounds left behind by Miss Collins. But in the back of her mind, doubts still lingered. While they colored together, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that things might not be as perfect as they seemed. A small part of her remained vigilant, wary of the darkness that had once seeped into her life. That evening, after Ella left, Maya overheard her parents talking quietly in the kitchen. Their words were muffled, but she could make out snippets of conversation. "We need to monitor her more closely. I don't want to take any chances," her father's voice carried a weight of concern. Maya's heart sank. The fear she had fought so hard to suppress began to creep back in. Would she ever be free of this suffocating anxiety? Would she ever trust someone again? As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she knew one thing for certain: the road to healing would be long, and the scars of the past might never fully fade. But in her heart, a small flame of hope flickered. Perhaps this time, things would be different. Monday morning arrived with a heavy sky, the air thick with impending rain. Maya's heart raced as she got ready for school, the familiar knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. She glanced at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, trying to muster confidence. Today would be different. She would focus on her friends, on her art, and on escaping the memories that haunted her. As she walked into school, Maya felt the weight of eyes on her, a mix of sympathy and curiosity from her classmates. Whispers followed her like shadows, but she pushed through, determined not to let it affect her. She found her safe haven in the art room, where the smell of paint and the sight of colorful canvases surrounded her. "Hey, Maya!" Zara called, waving her over. "Did you see the new art exhibit downtown? It's supposed to be amazing." Maya smiled, grateful for her friend's enthusiasm. "Not yet, but I really want to go. Maybe we can check it out this weekend?" "Absolutely. I can't wait to see what you create next," Zara replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Just then, the classroom door swung open, and Miss Collins's name hung in the air like a dark cloud. Maya's heart dropped at the thought of the woman who had made her life so unbearable. But in the moment, she shook her head, focusing instead on the lightness of her friendship with Zara. As the school day progressed, however, the whispers and glances began to resurface. During lunch, a group of girls nearby was giggling, stealing glances in Maya's direction. She couldn't help but feel the sting of their laughter, as if they were discussing her as a joke. "Are they talking about you?" Zara asked, concern etched across her face. "I don't know," Maya replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wish they would stop." "Forget them. You're amazing just as you are," Zara reassured her, though Maya could see the worry in her eyes. But the damage had already been done. That evening, while Ella babysat, Maya found herself retreating into her art. She painted furiously, each stroke of the brush a release of pent-up frustration and sadness. Ella watched quietly, allowing her space, but Maya could sense a shift in the air. "Maya, if you ever want to talk about anything, I'm here," Ella said gently, breaking the silence. "I know it's been a tough time for you." Maya paused, her heart racing. Could she trust Ella? Would she understand? "It's just, school is hard right now," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Ella nodded, her expression empathetic. "I get it. Sometimes people don't understand what others go through. It can feel really isolating." The words struck a chord with Maya. Here was someone who seemed to truly get it, someone who wasn't just there to watch her, but to listen. "I just don't want anyone to think I'm weak," Maya confessed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You're not weak for feeling this way. It takes strength to admit when things are tough," Ella replied, her voice steady and reassuring. For the first time, Maya felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of a friendship that could help her heal. But the thoughts of Miss Collins still lurked in the back of her mind, casting a shadow over the bright possibilities. That night, as Maya lay in bed, she thought about what Ella had said. Maybe she could learn to trust again. But what if Ella turned out to be just like Miss Collins? The uncertainty gnawed at her. The following day at school, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. News had spread about Miss Collins, and students began to approach Maya with a mix of concern and curiosity. "Maya, are you okay?" one girl asked, her voice laced with genuine worry. "I heard about what happened," another chimed in. "That's so awful. I can't believe someone would do that." Maya felt overwhelmed. The whispers that once stung now felt suffocating. It was as if the entire school was fixated on her experience, a spotlight shining too brightly on her vulnerability. Later, during art class, she overheard a couple of boys talking. "Did you hear Maya's babysitter was a total monster?" one said, laughter in his voice. "She probably deserved it." I mean, who even gets bullied by a babysitter? Maya's heart sank, the laughter cutting deeper than she expected. The familiar feeling of shame washed over her, and she turned to Zara, who looked equally disturbed. Why do they have to be like this? Zara whispered, her eyes filled with anger. I don't know, Maya replied, her voice trembling. It feels like I can't escape it. Even here. As the school day ended, Maya felt emotionally drained. She walked home slowly, the gray sky matching her mood. When she arrived, Ella was already there, setting up art supplies in the living room. Hey, Maya. Ready to create some masterpieces? Ella's cheerful demeanor seemed to clash with Maya's heavy heart. Yeah. I guess, Maya mumbled, her mind elsewhere. Ella noticed the shift in Maya's energy. What's wrong? You seem a bit off today. Maya hesitated, feeling the weight of her emotions. It's just, school is really hard. People are talking about me, and it's exhausting. Ella's expression softened, understanding glimmering in her eyes. People can be really thoughtless. But you're so much stronger than they realize. You've faced so much, and you're still here. That says a lot about who you are. Maya felt a flicker of warmth in Ella's words, but the shadows of doubt lingered. Could she truly let go of the fear that had gripped her for so long? As they began to paint, Maya lost herself in the colors and shapes, the world outside fading away for a brief moment. She felt a semblance of normalcy return, and it was a much-needed relief. But just as the atmosphere began to lighten, a sharp knock on the door shattered the peace. Maya's heart raced. Who could it be? Her mother opened the door, revealing a stern-looking woman with a clipboard. Good afternoon. I'm here for a follow-up regarding Maya's situation, the woman stated, her tone professional but cold. Maya's heart sank. The shadow of her past was not ready to release its grip. Maya's heart raced as she watched the stern woman step into their home. The tension in the air felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Can I help you? Maya's mother asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. I'm Ms. Reynolds from Child Protective Services, the woman replied, her tone clipped and formal. I need to speak with Maya regarding the allegations made against her babysitter. Maya felt a rush of emotions collide within her, fear, anger, embarrassment. Allegations, she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. Please, Maya, sit down, her mother said, guiding her to the couch. It's okay. Maya's mind raced. She had known this might happen, but the reality of it was suffocating. The judgment in Ms. Reynolds's eyes felt like a spotlight shining on her darkest moments. Thank you for coming, Ms. Reynolds, Maya's mother said, her voice firm. Maya is a good girl, and I can assure you that she is not in any danger while under my care. Ms. Reynolds nodded, though her expression remained unreadable. I understand. However, we need to investigate the situation fully. I'd like to hear from Maya about her experiences with Ms. Collins. Maya felt her stomach churn. She had never wanted to relive those moments, the pain and humiliation flooding back with every word. But she knew she had to speak up. She had to be brave. Maya, you can tell her the truth, her mother encouraged gently, squeezing her hand. Taking a deep breath, Maya nodded. Okay, she said, her voice shaky but determined. Ms. Collins, she hurt me. Not just physically but emotionally too. I was scared to tell anyone. Ms. Reynolds leaned forward, her clipboard poised and ready. Can you describe what happened? Maya hesitated, the memories flooding her mind. She would hit me, call me names, she made me feel worthless. I felt like I was trapped. I thought she was supposed to take care of me. Ms. Reynolds's expression softened slightly, but Maya could still see the professional detachment in her eyes. Thank you for sharing that with me, Maya. It's very important to speak up. Your safety is our priority. But what will happen to Ms. Collins? Maya asked, a flicker of hope and fear mixing in her chest. We'll conduct a thorough investigation. If necessary, action will be taken, Ms. Reynolds assured her, though the finality in her voice sent chills down Maya's spine. Just then, the door swung open, and Ella entered, a bright smile on her face that quickly faded as she sensed the tension in the room. What's going on? Ella, it's okay, Maya's mother said quickly. Just a follow-up about Maya's situation. Ella's eyes widened in understanding. Maya, are you okay? She asked, concern washing over her features. Maya felt a swell of gratitude for her friend. I'm trying, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Ms. Reynolds turned her attention to Ella. Do you have any knowledge of what happened with Maya and her babysitter? Ella stepped forward, her expression resolute. I know she was hurt. It's not fair what happened to her. Ms. Collins is awful. Thank you for your input, Ella. I appreciate your concern for your friend, Ms. Reynolds replied, making notes on her clipboard. Maya felt her heart swell with warmth at Ella's support, but it was quickly overshadowed by a wave of dread. What if Ms. Collins found out? What if things got worse? Maya, we need to talk about the next steps, Ms. Reynolds continued, her tone professional once more. We'll ensure that you have the support you need moving forward. You won't have to see Ms. Collins again. A rush of relief washed over Maya, but it was fleeting. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. Thank you, Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. I just want it to stop. Then we'll make sure it does, Ms. Reynolds replied, her voice firm. We'll work together to keep you safe. As Ms. Reynolds finished her notes, Maya felt a mix of hope and anxiety. Could this be the turning point she needed? Would she finally find the strength to confront the darkness that had overshadowed her life? After Ms. Reynolds left, the air in the room felt lighter, but Maya's heart still felt heavy. You did great, Maya, Ella said, wrapping her arms around her in a comforting hug. I'm scared, Maya admitted, her voice trembling. What if she comes after me? She won't, Ella reassured her, pulling back to look her in the eyes. You're not alone in this. We'll face whatever comes together. Maya felt a surge of gratitude for Ella's unwavering support, but the shadows of doubt still loomed large. The battle was far from over. As the evening wore on, Maya found herself unable to concentrate on her art. The colors that once brought her joy now felt muted, as if the fear of what lay ahead had dulled her passion. Maya, why don't we take a break? Ella suggested, sensing her friend's struggle. Let's watch a movie or something. Maya nodded, grateful for the distraction. But even as they settled in front of the TV, her mind wandered back to Miss Collins, to the pain and humiliation she had endured. The confrontation with Ms. Reynolds had been a step forward, but the path ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty. Just as the movie began, Maya's phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up with a notification. It was a message from Zara, "Hey, thinking of you. Let's hang out soon." A small smile tugged at Maya's lips. Maybe friendship was the anchor she needed in the storm. Maya, you okay? Ella asked, noticing the shift in her demeanor. Yeah, I think I'll be alright, Maya replied, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in a long while. Thanks for being here. I'll always be here for you, Ella promised, her smile warm and genuine. As the movie played on, Maya felt a flicker of determination igniting within her. The shadows might still linger, but she was ready to fight back. With the support of her friends and her family, she would no longer be the victim of her circumstances. Tomorrow was a new day, and with it came the chance to reclaim her voice, her strength, and her story. The next morning, Maya awoke with a sense of purpose. The shadows of yesterday still clung to her, but the flicker of determination from the previous night refused to be extinguished. She had spoken out, she had been heard. Now it was time to take her power back. Maya's mother had arranged for a meeting with the school counselor, Mrs. Lopez, to discuss the ongoing issues with Ms. Collins. The thought of it sent a mix of anxiety and excitement through her. She wanted to share her story, to make sure other kids didn't have to go through what she did. As she got ready for school, Maya's phone buzzed with messages from Ella and Zara, both sending their support and asking about the meeting. "You're so brave, Maya. We've got your back. Can't wait to see you later." Maya felt the warmth of their words wrap around her like a comforting blanket. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone in this fight. "Are you ready, sweetie?" her mother called from downstairs. "Yeah, I'll be right down," Maya replied, finishing up her hair. She took one last look in the mirror, a girl determined to stand up against the injustices she faced. She couldn't let Ms. Collins win. As they drove to school, Maya's mother turned to her, concern etched on her face. "I know this is difficult, honey, but I'm proud of you for speaking up. It takes a lot of courage." Maya nodded, appreciating her mother's support. "I just want to make sure no one else has to go through this," she said quietly. When they arrived at school, the familiar rush of students filled the hallways. But for Maya, each face felt like a potential witness to her pain, each laugh echoing her past struggles. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she was no longer the girl who would be silent. "Maya. Over here." Ella called, waving enthusiastically as she spotted her. Maya felt a rush of relief wash over her. Ella's presence always had a way of calming her nerves. "Hey, how are you feeling?" Ella asked, genuine concern in her eyes. "I'm okay, I think," Maya replied, though she felt the knots in her stomach tighten. "I just want to get through today." "I'll be right by your side," Ella promised, linking her arm with Maya's. Together, they walked toward their first class, the support of friendship providing a shield against the uncertainty of the day. As they entered the classroom, Maya noticed a few whispers from the students. Some shot curious glances her way, and she felt the heat rise in her cheeks. Was it too much to expect understanding? Would they judge her for speaking out? "Don't listen to them," Ella whispered, sensing Maya's unease. "You're doing the right thing." Just then, the bell rang, signaling the start of class. Mrs. Peterson, their teacher, walked in and immediately noticed the tension in the room. "Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to discuss an important topic: kindness and respect. We all have a role to play in creating a safe environment for each other." Maya's heart raced as she listened, wondering if Mrs. Peterson knew about her situation. What if someone in class needed help? Mrs. Peterson continued. "How can we support them?" Maya raised her hand hesitantly. "What if someone is being hurt by someone who's supposed to take care of them?" The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Maya felt exposed, but there was a weight behind her words that she knew needed to be heard. "I think it's important to tell someone. Even if you're scared, you need to speak up." Mrs. Peterson nodded, her expression serious. "That's a brave thing to say, Maya. Thank you for sharing. It's essential that we look out for one another." Maya felt a swell of pride, even amidst the fear. Maybe this was the beginning of change, not just for herself, but for others who might be suffering in silence. After class, Maya, Ella, and Zara gathered in a corner of the hallway, their usual laughter subdued. "How do you think it went?" Zara asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "I think I'm finally ready to tell Mrs. Lopez everything," Maya admitted, her heart pounding. "I want her to know how bad it really was." Ella smiled, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "You've got this, Maya. We're right here with you." As the bell rang for the next class, they walked toward the counselor's office, Maya's heart racing with every step. The hallway felt longer than ever, and she could feel the weight of expectation hanging in the air. Finally, they reached the door to Mrs. Lopez's office. Maya knocked softly, her stomach twisting in knots. "Come in," Mrs. Lopez called, her voice warm and inviting. Maya took a deep breath, stepping inside with Ella and Zara at her side. "Hello, Maya. I'm glad you could make it," Mrs. Lopez greeted, gesturing for them to sit down. Maya felt a surge of nerves as she took a seat, her friends sitting close beside her for support. "Thank you for meeting with me," Maya said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "I understand you have something important to share," Mrs. Lopez prompted gently. Maya's heart raced, but she knew this was her moment. "I want to talk about Ms. Collins, about what she did to me," she said, her voice unwavering. Mrs. Lopez listened intently, her expression serious but compassionate. "I'm here to help you, Maya. You're safe here." With that, Maya began to share her story, recounting the pain and humiliation she had endured at the hands of her babysitter. With each word, she felt a weight lifting, the shadows that had clung to her for so long beginning to fade. As she spoke, Ella and Zara exchanged supportive glances, their presence a reminder that she was not alone in this fight. Maya was reclaiming her narrative, and the knowledge that she was finally being heard filled her with strength. When she finished, Mrs. Lopez nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you for being so brave, Maya. It's crucial that we address this situation. You've taken an important step toward healing." Maya felt a mix of relief and fear. What would happen next? Would Ms. Collins retaliate? But she pushed those thoughts aside. She had chosen to stand up for herself, and she wouldn't back down now. As they left the office, Maya felt lighter than she had in weeks. The storm was still gathering, but she was no longer afraid of the fight ahead. With the support of her friends and family, she would face whatever came next. After the meeting with Mrs. Lopez, Maya felt a sense of clarity she hadn't experienced in a long time. She had shared her story, and now the ball was rolling toward justice. But as she returned to class, the weight of uncertainty hung in the air. What would happen next? The day dragged on, each period feeling like an eternity. Maya's mind raced with thoughts about the meeting. Would Ms. Collins retaliate? Would her friends support her when the truth came out? She had to remind herself that she was no longer the quiet girl who accepted cruelty in silence. During lunch, the cafeteria buzzed with chatter. Maya, Ella, and Zara found a table in the corner, their usual spot where they could talk freely. "Maya, you were amazing in there," Ella said, her voice filled with admiration. "I'm really proud of you." "Thanks," Maya replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. It felt good to finally say something. Zara leaned in, her eyes serious. "Do you think Mrs. Lopez will do something about Ms. Collins?" "I hope so," Maya said, the worry creeping back. "I just don't want her to get away with it. What if she tries to make things worse for me?" Ella reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. "You're not alone in this. We're here for you, no matter what." Just then, the mood shifted as a group of kids entered the cafeteria, laughter erupting from their table. Maya recognized them instantly. Some were classmates from her art class, and others were part of the popular crowd that often laughed at her expense. Among them was Lily, Miss Collins's daughter, a girl Maya had always wanted to be friends with, but who had always made her feel like an outsider. Lily's laughter rang through the cafeteria like nails on a chalkboard, and Maya instinctively tensed. She had seen the way Lily treated others, how her privilege shielded her from the harsh realities that Maya faced. Maya's heart raced as Lily approached their table, a smug smile on her face. "Hey, Maya. Heard you had a little chat with Mrs. Lopez," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Maya felt her stomach drop, the earlier sense of empowerment threatened by Lily's taunts. "What do you mean?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lily shrugged, feigning innocence. "You know, all that crying about Ms. Collins. Bet she's going to get fired or something," she smirked, her friend snickering behind her. Maya clenched her fists, the anger bubbling up. "You don't know anything," she snapped, surprising herself with the force of her words. Lily feigned shock, placing a hand over her heart. "Ooh, someone's feisty. What's the matter, Maya? Did the babysitter give you a timeout?" Ella stood up, her expression fierce. "Leave her alone, Lily. You have no idea what she's been through." Lily rolled her eyes, but the tension in the air was palpable. "Whatever. I just thought you'd want to share your little drama with the class," she said before turning on her heel, strutting back to her table with her group of followers. Maya felt the heat rise in her cheeks, embarrassment mingling with the lingering anger. "I hate her," she muttered, feeling the tears prick her eyes. "Don't let her get to you, Maya," Zara said softly. "She's just trying to make herself feel better by putting you down." As they finished lunch, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of dread that hung over her. Would Lily spread rumors about her? Would Ms. Collins hear about their meeting? The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she was determined not to let it crush her spirit. Later that afternoon, as the final bell rang, Maya's heart raced with anticipation. She had agreed to meet Mrs. Lopez again after school, to follow up on the situation. As she walked to the counselor's office, she felt the familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach, but she pushed through. When she arrived, Mrs. Lopez was waiting for her, her expression warm and welcoming. "Maya, I'm glad you came back. I wanted to discuss what we can do next." "Is it about Ms. Collins?" Maya asked, her voice steady but laced with nervousness. "Yes," Mrs. Lopez replied, her tone serious. "I've spoken to the principal, and we're taking this situation very seriously. I need to gather more information from you and other students who might have witnessed what happened." Maya nodded, relief flooding through her. "Thank you. I just want to make sure she doesn't hurt anyone else." "Exactly," Mrs. Lopez agreed. "I also want to talk to your parents. We need to ensure they are aware of the situation and involved in the next steps." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. The thought of involving her parents made her anxious. Would they be angry that she hadn't told them sooner? What will happen after that? Maya asked, biting her lip. "If we can confirm the reports, we'll take appropriate action," Mrs. Lopez assured her. "But it's important for you to know that this process might be difficult. There could be pushback from Ms. Collins or her family." Maya took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "I understand. I just want to make sure other kids don't have to deal with her like I did." As they spoke, Maya realized the truth behind her courage. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore, she was fighting for every kid who had ever felt small or powerless. That evening, as Maya walked home, the weight of her decision settled over her like a cloak. She felt scared, uncertain, but also powerful in a way she had never felt before. When she entered her home, her mother was waiting in the living room, a concerned look on her face. "How did it go?" Maya took a deep breath, ready to share everything. "I talked to Mrs. Lopez about Ms. Collins. She's going to help me." Her mother's eyes widened with surprise and pride. "I'm so glad you took that step. I'm here for you every step of the way." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. She wasn't alone in this fight. The ripple effect of her bravery was just beginning, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The next few days passed in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. Maya's resolve hardened as she awaited the results of her meeting with Mrs. Lopez. Each morning, she stepped into the school building with her heart pounding, a mix of dread and determination coursing through her veins. As the week wore on, whispers began to circulate. It seemed like everyone had something to say about Maya and Ms. Collins. The cafeteria buzzed with rumors, some supportive, others cruel. Maya felt the weight of their stares, the sharpness of their words. It was as if every student had a role in the theater of her life, and she was suddenly the star of a production she never auditioned for. One afternoon, as she walked to her locker, she overheard a group of girls from her gym class. "Did you hear? Maya went to the principal about her babysitter." "What a drama queen," one of them sneered, their laughter slicing through Maya like a knife. "Maya's just trying to get attention," another girl chimed in. "Maybe she should just suck it up like the rest of us." Maya clenched her fists, the urge to retaliate almost overwhelming. But she remembered Mrs. Lopez's advice: don't let them get to you. Focus on your goal. That night, as she sat in her room, her phone buzzed with a message from Ella. "Hey, are you ready for tomorrow?" Tomorrow. The day she had been both anticipating and dreading, the day the school would hold a meeting to address the complaints about Ms. Collins. Maya's heart raced. What if things didn't go the way she hoped? "I'm trying to be just nervous," she replied, staring at the reflection of her anxious self in the darkened screen. Ella's response came quickly: "You'll be great. Remember, we've got your back. We're coming to support you." Feeling a surge of gratitude, Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She couldn't back down now. She had to be brave, not just for herself, but for all the kids who had suffered in silence. The next day, the atmosphere in the school was electric. Students buzzed with speculation, and teachers wore tight-lipped expressions as they prepared for the meeting. When the final bell rang, Maya felt a knot of tension in her stomach as she and her friends made their way to the auditorium. As they entered, Maya was struck by the sight of her peers filling the seats. There was a palpable energy in the room, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The air was thick with expectation, and Maya could feel the weight of their eyes on her. Mrs. Lopez stood at the front, her presence commanding. "Thank you all for coming today. We're here to address some important issues regarding student safety and well-being," she began, her voice steady and reassuring. Maya's heart raced as she listened, her mind racing with possibilities. Would she really get a chance to speak? Would Ms. Collins be there? As Mrs. Lopez continued, she mentioned the importance of creating a safe environment for all students, emphasizing that no one should feel afraid to speak up about their experiences. "Today, we'll be hearing from students who have felt threatened or uncomfortable in their interactions with staff members," she said, glancing at Maya. Maya's breath hitched. This was it. She had to be brave. When Mrs. Lopez called her name, the room fell silent, all eyes turning to her. Maya stood up, her heart pounding. She took a deep breath, feeling the supportive presence of Ella and Zara beside her. As she walked to the front, memories of her experiences flooded her mind, the fear, the pain, the humiliation. But she pushed them aside, focusing on the purpose of her speech. "Hello, everyone," she said, her voice shaking at first but gaining strength as she spoke. "I'm Maya, and I'm here to share what happened to me with Ms. Collins." The murmurs around the room faded as Maya began to recount her story, choosing her words carefully. She described the bullying, the pain of feeling powerless, and how she had finally decided to take a stand. As she spoke, she could see some students nodding, their expressions shifting from indifference to concern. It felt empowering to share her truth, and with every word, she felt the weight of shame lift off her shoulders. "I'm not the only one who's felt this way. There are others," she continued, her voice steadying. "And I just want to make sure that no one else has to go through what I did." When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before a wave of applause broke out. Maya felt her cheeks flush with warmth as she stepped back, a mix of relief and pride swelling in her chest. Mrs. Lopez took over, her voice filled with compassion. "Thank you, Maya, for your courage. It takes immense bravery to speak up, and your story is a reminder of why we need to ensure a safe environment for all students." But just as Maya began to feel a sense of victory, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The auditorium doors swung open, and in walked Ms. Collins, flanked by the principal and a few other teachers. The air grew tense, and whispers rippled through the crowd. "Is this a joke?" Ms. Collins sneered, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "A little girl trying to stir up trouble. How ridiculous." Maya's heart sank, a mix of fear and anger boiling within her. She had known this confrontation would come, but the reality was far more daunting than she had imagined. "Ms. Collins, please," Mrs. Lopez said firmly, her tone cutting through the tension. "This is not the time for personal attacks. We're here to discuss the concerns of our students." "Concerns? This is just a baseless accusation from someone looking for attention," Ms. Collins shot back, her arrogance evident. Maya felt the blood rush to her face as the room erupted with murmurs. It was as if a dam had broken, unleashing the pent-up frustrations of the students who had felt similarly unheard. "No. It's not just Maya," shouted one of Maya's classmates. "We've all seen how you treat her." Another voice joined in. "Yeah. You can't just bully kids and think it's okay." Ms. Collins's expression darkened as she scanned the room, the crowd's growing momentum leaving her cornered. Mrs. Lopez stepped forward, her demeanor resolute. "Enough. We will not tolerate this behavior in our school. Maya has shown great courage in speaking out, and it's time we address the underlying issues." The meeting continued, with several students sharing their experiences, each voice adding to the collective cry for change. Maya felt a surge of hope as she listened to her classmates support one another, their stories intertwining to create a powerful tapestry of resilience. As the meeting drew to a close, Maya realized that her fight was not just her own, it was a shared battle against the cruelty that had permeated their lives. When the students left the auditorium, a sense of solidarity hung in the air. Maya walked out with Ella and Zara, their smiles bright and filled with encouragement. "I can't believe we did that," Maya said, her heart still racing from the adrenaline of the confrontation. "We stood up for each other," Ella replied, her eyes shining with pride. "And we're not done yet." As they left the school grounds, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. The ripple effect of her courage had created a wave of support, and she was ready to ride it toward change. Together, they would confront the injustices that had plagued their lives and refuse to be silenced any longer. The days following the meeting felt like a whirlwind. News of Maya's courage spread throughout the school, and she became an unexpected hero among her peers. Students approached her in the hallways, offering words of encouragement and support. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of belonging, a collective camaraderie built on shared experiences and the resolve to create change. But with the attention came scrutiny. Ms. Collins's reputation began to fray as more students shared their stories of mistreatment. Maya overheard conversations about other incidents, how Ms. Collins had belittled students or dismissed their concerns with cruel jokes. Each revelation chipped away at the facade of authority that Ms. Collins had worn so proudly. Maya's parents noticed the shift in her demeanor. "You seem different lately," her mom remarked one evening as they sat down for dinner. "More confident, maybe?" "I guess so," Maya replied, a small smile creeping onto her face. "I spoke up at school about Ms. Collins, and a lot of kids backed me up." Her father's brow furrowed. "And how did she respond?" Maya hesitated, recalling Ms. Collins's cold dismissal and the way she had belittled her in front of the entire auditorium. "She was not nice. But it felt good to stand up for myself." Her parents exchanged glances, a mix of pride and concern flickering between them. "Just be careful, sweetheart," her mom cautioned. "Standing up for yourself is important, but you need to stay safe." Maya nodded, knowing that her parents had experienced their own battles against racism and bullying. Their caution only fueled her determination. She was tired of being scared, tired of letting someone else's cruelty dictate her worth. As the week progressed, the school administration announced an official investigation into Ms. Collins's behavior. The news spread like wildfire, igniting conversations in classrooms and hallways. Students began to organize, planning a peaceful protest to demand accountability and a safer environment for everyone. Maya was hesitant at first. "What if it makes things worse?" she asked Ella and Zara during lunch one day. "Worse than what? What's happening now?" Ella replied, her voice firm. "We have to show them we won't be silent anymore." Zara chimed in, and we'll do it together. We'll make signs and everything. Feeling the heat of their enthusiasm, Maya finally agreed. Okay. Let's do it. The next few days were a flurry of activity. Maya and her friends created colorful signs that read, "No more bullying," and "We deserve better." They decorated the school with their messages, hopeful and determined. As they prepared, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of unease. What if they faced backlash? What if Ms. Collins retaliated? But every time doubt crept in, she thought of her friends, the support they had shown her, and the faces of other students who had suffered in silence. She pushed through her fear, knowing that this was bigger than just her experience, it was about everyone. The day of the protest arrived, and excitement buzzed in the air. Students gathered outside the school, some wearing matching shirts and holding signs aloft. Maya's heart raced as she stood among them, feeling the strength of their collective voice. As they began to chant, "No more bullying. We want change." Maya felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the moment they would make their stand, their demands heard loud and clear. Just then, a figure emerged from the school, Ms. Collins. The crowd fell silent, and Maya's heart sank. She had dreaded this confrontation, but there was no turning back now. Ms. Collins's face twisted into a sneer as she surveyed the crowd. "This is absurd. You're all making fools of yourselves," she shouted, her voice dripping with contempt. The students exchanged glances, their resolve hardening. Maya stepped forward, her voice steady. "No, Ms. Collins. We're standing up for ourselves. We won't be bullied any longer." Ms. Collins scoffed, her eyes narrowing. "You think this will change anything? You think this will scare me?" Maya felt a rush of courage. "No, but it shows we're not afraid of you anymore. We're done being your targets." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, emboldening Maya. The chants grew louder, a unified declaration that resonated against the school's walls. As the protest continued, more students joined, their voices rising in solidarity. Maya felt a wave of exhilaration wash over her. She was no longer alone, they were all in this together. Suddenly, the principal stepped outside, flanked by a few teachers. "Enough," he bellowed, trying to regain control. "This is not how we handle our concerns. We need to discuss this in an appropriate manner." But the crowd wasn't backing down. "We want Ms. Collins gone," a voice shouted, igniting a chorus of agreement. "No more bullying." The principal's expression shifted as he surveyed the sea of students, his authority challenged. "I understand your concerns, and we will address them. But we need to do this the right way." Maya took a deep breath, her heart pounding. This was her moment. "We want to be heard, and we demand change. It's time for the school to protect us, not the bullies." The principal shifted uncomfortably, clearly taken aback by the strength of their demands. "We'll hold a meeting to discuss this further. But I need everyone to disperse peacefully." Maya nodded, sensing that they had made an impact, even if it wasn't the total victory she had hoped for. The crowd began to break up, but the energy lingered, an undercurrent of determination that would not be silenced. As Maya walked away with her friends, she felt a mixture of relief and empowerment. They had stood together, and their voices had echoed throughout the school. This was just the beginning. That night, as she lay in bed, Maya reflected on the day's events. The fight against Ms. Collins and the culture of bullying wasn't over, but they had made a significant step forward. With every act of courage, they were tearing down the walls of silence that had held them captive for too long. Maya closed her eyes, feeling hopeful for the first time in ages. She knew that together, they could face whatever came next. The following week was a blur of meetings and discussions, as the school administration began to take the students' protest seriously. Maya found herself in the midst of a whirlwind of emotions, hope, anxiety, and determination intermingled as she navigated this new reality. the principal announced a school-wide assembly to address the concerns raised by the protest. Maya's heart raced at the thought of speaking in front of the entire school. Would they really listen? Would Ms. Collins retaliate? Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was her chance to make a lasting difference. As the day of the assembly approached, Maya and her friends met to prepare. "We need to be clear about what we want," Zara urged, her brow furrowed with concern. "If we don't lay it out for them, they might try to dismiss us again." "Right," Maya agreed, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "We need to demand accountability, not just for Ms. Collins, but for anyone who allows this kind of behavior to continue." Ella nodded, her determination unwavering. "We have to make them understand that we deserve a safe environment. No more excuses." When the day finally arrived, the auditorium was packed. Students filled the seats, their faces a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Teachers and staff were present as well, some appearing supportive, others wary of the students' growing power. Maya took a deep breath as she walked up to the podium, the spotlight illuminating her trembling hands. The murmurs quieted as she stood before her peers, the weight of their collective gaze settling on her. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steadying as she spoke. "Last week, we stood together to demand an end to bullying and harassment in our school. We made it clear that we are tired of being treated like we don't matter." She glanced at her friends in the audience, their encouraging smiles bolstering her confidence. "Today, we want to share our demands for real change. We want the school to implement anti-bullying programs and provide safe spaces for students to report incidents without fear of retaliation. We want our voices to be heard and respected." Applause erupted from the crowd, filling Maya with a surge of empowerment. She continued, outlining their demands clearly and passionately. "We need our teachers to be held accountable, to receive training on how to recognize and address bullying. No more turning a blind eye to what happens in our hallways and classrooms." As she spoke, she could see some teachers nodding in agreement, a flicker of hope igniting within her. But there were still faces in the crowd, cold, dismissive looks that reminded her of the hostility she had faced. Then, Ms. Collins stood up from the back of the auditorium. "This is absurd. You all are just a bunch of whiny kids who don't know how to behave." Her voice cut through the applause, a harsh contrast to the supportive atmosphere. Maya felt her heart sink for a moment, but then the crowd erupted in boos and shouts of disapproval. "You're the problem," someone yelled. "We're not afraid of you anymore." Taking a deep breath, Maya stepped forward, addressing Ms. Collins directly. "You may think you can intimidate us, but your time of power over us is over. We're not backing down. We will continue to speak up until we feel safe in our school." The room erupted in cheers, the energy electrifying. Maya's words resonated, and for the first time, she felt the weight of her voice, and the voices of her peers, truly matching. After the assembly, the principal approached Maya and her friends. "I want to commend you for your courage," he said, his tone surprisingly supportive. "I assure you, we are taking your concerns seriously. We'll be implementing the changes you've suggested, starting with a meeting next week to discuss anti-bullying measures and training for our staff." Maya felt a mix of relief and cautious optimism. "Thank you, sir. We really want to see actual changes. We need to make sure this doesn't happen again." He nodded, his expression earnest. "We'll work together to make your school a safer place for everyone." As Maya left the auditorium, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they had taken a crucial step toward a better future. That evening, she shared the news with her parents. "They're really going to listen, Mom. They're going to hold meetings about anti-bullying programs." Her voice brimmed with excitement. Her parents exchanged proud smiles, their hearts swelling with hope. "You did this, Maya. You stood up and made a difference," her father said, pulling her into a warm embrace. In the days that followed, Maya felt the ripple effects of their protest. Conversations about bullying became more common in classrooms, and students began to speak out more openly about their experiences. It was as if a dam had burst, and the flow of suppressed voices was finally being heard. Ms. Collins, however, was not easily deterred. Rumors spread about her resistance to the changes, her refusal to accept any responsibility. Maya steeled herself for potential confrontations but remained resolute in her commitment to fight for justice. One afternoon, while leaving school, Maya noticed a group of students gathered outside the entrance. Curiosity piqued, she approached them, only to find them discussing the need for a student-led council focused on addressing issues of bullying and discrimination. "Do you want to join us, Maya?" one of the students asked, his eyes filled with determination. Maya's heart raced at the thought. "Absolutely. We need to make sure our voices keep being heard. We can't let this be a one-time thing." As they brainstormed ideas for their council, Maya felt a sense of purpose solidifying within her. She was no longer just a victim, she was an advocate, a leader. And as she looked around at her peers, she realized that they were all in this together, ready to create a future where no one would have to endure the same pain she had faced. Their journey was just beginning, but Maya was filled with hope. Together, they would rise, united against bullying and injustice, forging a path toward a brighter tomorrow.